Hi, I'm Leia Hava and I'm autistic. I recently watched the animated film Vivo on Netflix with my family and wow, I loved it. There's so much that I could say about this film and how much of myself I see in the character Gabby and how I wish this film had been out when I was a kid. But I'm gonna zoom this video in on just one song. It's called My Own Drum, and it is how the character introduces her inner self and after several introductory scenes where others are trying to rein her in some way. So before I get into it, I want to say that I am sure that there are layers to this that I'm missing. That's not even a question. Hip hop has a rich history, and I know that there are probably elements in the song that totally go over my head because I'm not well versed, see what I did there, in that history or the musical genre itself. Rap and hip hop styles often, but don't always, include elements that clash with my synesthesia, making it hard for me to listen to. That doesn't make it any less awesome as an art form. And I'm super glad that my sensory systems let me enjoy my own drum, even if I have to turn the volume down below what I think the song rightfully calls for. Another thing I should mention is that when I quote the song, I will preserve the basic meter, but I won't try my hand at rapping. No one wants to see me try to copycat a style whose history and nuances I don't know. If you want to see Yanarali Simo's epic performance of Lin Manuel Miranda's lyrics, a link is in the description, and I really hope I pronounced her name correctly. So I'm making this video about why I believe this song is an autistic anthem. The first obvious place to look is the lyrics. The song crams a shocking amount of the autistic experience into just 2.5 minutes, not even 2.5 minutes. It jumps straight in with, I dance to the beat of my own drum. I'm a wow in a world full of ho-hum. I'm a wild young lady and you know some. I'd rather be at home with my own drum. Now, if that doesn't describe what it's like to be neurodivergent, I don't know what does. This stanza already touches on several things. One, awareness that she's different. Neurotypicals might think that we aren't self-aware because they figure that if we knew how weird we seem to them, we would change. Two, masking. Some of us try to meet that expectation by masking, and this is especially common in neurodivergent women. But that's what's so refreshing about these lyrics. Gabby's differences aren't a problem to pathologize. She might be wild, but that's what makes her a wow in a world full of ho-hum. She refuses to mask out of confident self-love. She's an extremely capable character who is willing to try and fail at anything she deems worthy of her efforts. 3, preference for accommodating spaces. The world is not set up with neurodivergent needs in mind, and Gabby sticks out like a sore thumb wherever she goes. So, in spite of her wildness, she would rather be at home with her own drum because that's the space that she feels best and where she can be her truest self. Another facet of the autistic experience that the lyrics pick up on is our relationship with humor. Many autistic folks have punny senses of humor. I know I do. I also routinely laugh at my own jokes and point out puns if I think that the people around me missed them. I couldn't even let a pun go unacknowledged while I was in the middle of pushing out a baby. So that should give you an inkling about how I felt seeing a big budget kids animated feature introduce a main character with the lyrics, instrumental, ha, see what I did there? I made a pun, ha, I'm having fun, ha, I'm never done, ha. That stanza goes on a little longer, but no one wants to hear me scat. In the next verse, Gabby goes on to describe her experiences of isolation and the novelty effect that I discussed in a video linked below. She tells us that because she's extra, the kids that the other kids can't get next to, I've got my own seat on the bus. I've always been a me, not an us. That much, as much as I want to discuss these two experiences in their own paragraphs, the song doesn't allow it, because it sandwiches the part about being isolated from other kids tightly between the lyrics about being extra and the next stanza where she describes being told, you're at a 10, I need you at a 3. Hot, try that again, I gotta be me, yo. I am a 10, I gotta be free. The way that social isolation, the novelty effect, and stubborn surety that masking is a disservice to the self are so tangled together here. And it describes my own experiences in a way that I hardly know how to explain to neurotypicals. I'm lost for any useful words to add because the song speaks so strongly for itself. I feel like I should be able to just hold up these lyrics and say, see? It's right there. And I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people watching this video will be sitting there saying, well, yeah, what's there to explain? Anyway, after going back to the chorus, did I mention that first stanza we talked about is also the chorus? Gabby declares a solo and starts enthusiastically playing the recorder. Committed as her performance there may be, she barely gets enough of the notes and the rhythm right for the audience to infer what she's trying to do. I know that I said that we were just going to look at the lyrics here first, but they can't be isolated from the other elements in the song from here on. Everything we've talked about so far has been a big, unpredictable, bright world of Gabby's self-image. Before the song started, we saw that her room is riddled with musical instruments that she has started to learn and then quit. The song itself mentioned that she'd broken the rented violin that she'd tried to learn on. It's abundantly clear that music is her special interest, but she doesn't get into any particular instrument long enough to hone her skill. But here's the thing, the solo is happening with all its unpolished glory in the visual space of her imagination. It's not an imagined perfect solo in her head and gobbledygook to an outside observer. She knows exactly what she sounds like and she's happy with it. Because it's okay to not have perfectly mastered your newest hyperfixation. If you've switched instruments as many times as Gabby has by the age of 10, you're used to not sounding like a pro. And Gabby clearly revels in whatever has her attention in the given week, no matter her skill level. It might not be her big thing next week, but dang it, she's gonna enjoy it now. But this song isn't over. There's more. Less than 2.5 minutes, and there's more. We're not done yet. The next verse has so many more experiential elements going on that I actually struggle to write a cohesive paragraph about it. The verse takes a distinct break from the other sensory chaos that the song has been up until now. In her excitement at the thought that Vivo had come home with her in order to be friends and orphans together, her attempt at an invitation to meet her inner self has actually been an overwhelming audio and visual rush that Vivo can barely stumble through. But here, the music gets simpler and quieter. Her voice acquires heavy computer editing that echoes like she's slowly approaching through a tunnel. The visuals transition to her standing in her room. The colors get dim, and 3D objects become simplified outlines that remind me of the cartoon show Pablo, which is about the adventures of a non-speaking autistic child with his drawings. It's also created by non-speaking autistics. A tangent, I know, but if you haven't seen Pablo, I recommend it. Link is also in the description. Anyway, the lyrics here talk about how she's always been solo and the reasons that she feels this is so. She says, I speed up when the world's in slow-mo. I make it up as I go when I don't know. We're right back to that awareness of her differences that we got at the beginning. but expressed with less confidence. We as an audience see the cracks in her confidence as she hangs her head in her room full of haphazardly strewn stuff and continues, I know it seems like I'm lonely. People assume that I'm lonely. Look at this room and you assume that you know me. This conflict is so real to so many of us. We want to be ourselves. We will use as much defiance as we need to put ourselves into the environment where we can do that. But without access to other people like us, we're in our safe environment alone. And even if we don't want to subject ourselves to the judgmental people available to us, we do get lonely. The pandemic, during which this movie was released, has shown that even introverts get lonely. Gabby processes this briefly, but then tries to recover from the idea of herself. Tries to recover the idea of herself that she's trying to project by saying, you don't know me, I'm in the zone. And then she clenches her fists and explodes back into the chorus. Thinking that she and Vivo are on the same page, she's now using we in place of I. In the song, she's triumphantly bouncing on a giant balloon shaped like herself, but when we see Vivo's perspective, Gabby is jumping up and down in a pile of her belongings. She's excitedly stimming away. What Gabby doesn't understand is that Vivo is not at all on the same page. But what should we expect of her? She's 10, and she was excited about the circumstances as she saw them. And frankly, she's a more self-aware 10-year-old than I was. But the novelty effect sets in. She's too much for him. Way too much. Like a 10 compared to a 3. He's a kinkajou, not a kid after all. And after struggling to keep his footing for the entire song, Vivo flees out the window and leaves Gabby asking, where'd you go, huh? Boy, does that hit home. I'm sure that almost any neurodivergent person you ask could tell you about a time they thought they clicked with someone over a shared interest and then got ghosted because they were somehow too into it. It's practically a rite of passage. And that's the setup that we get to introduce this character. I could go on about the autistic representation that Gabby provides in this song and beyond it in the movie, but this video is getting long and the layers are getting so mixed up that I'm actually having trouble thinking about how to present them to make sense. Feel free to keep that conversation going in the comments and subscribe if you want to hear more from me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Bye!